stuff that we live in, that's really not what's real on planet Earth. Not really. It's actually made out of nature. So.
Wait, what's not real?
Oh, man-made things.
Oh, yeah.
They're real. But I'm saying the Earth is made out of nature. That's actually really real.
Yeah, you see, that's not really my. I think it doesn't surprise me that you would say that, but it's really not my perspective.
Oh well, yeah.
I think of I think of like human society or whatever as a subset of nature. So I don't even. I mean, semantically, we'd say there's nature and then there's like society and they're dualistic, and that's kind of how the words work. So if you push too hard against that, it's a little bit lame. I'll admit that. But at the same time, I do think of like society and even cities and stuff as being almost like an ecosystem. You know, you go into a different ecosystem and you're not like, oh, this one's not real.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you that categorically that makes sense. Experientially, though, being in cities, you know, I mean, there's different environments. Being in a neighborhood is different than being in the financial district of a major city. But when it comes to basically cars and buildings, there's city and then nature is like categorically different. As far as it being less alive, that's really what it boils down for me.
Okay, well, that's true. Unless you're like in a desert or something. But you're right. Cities are essentially, I mean, there's actually a lot of life there. But,
people,
they are comparatively like created deserts.
Yeah, exactly. That's, I think I consider it on the very like highly defined level of just like what has more plant life, and then, you know, birds and natural systems. Anyway,
Tell you what, I have stuff here to make some kratom. We were going to discuss kratom, remember?
Oh yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Here's a waterfall.
Yeah, you could call it a waterfall, I suppose. Here, I'm going to take my... turn on my camera, the background of my camera, so I can do other things. There we go.
This looks like pyramids.
What'd you say?
It looks like pyramids.
Oh, hey, can I ask? Are you using a on your head microphone?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah. Did you do it last time?
No.
Oh, okay. I would probably get in the habit of trying that because I think we'll have more consistent sound and you'll be able to hear me better.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I thought about it. I wasn't sure, but yeah, that's no problem.
Let's see. We had people waiting for us, and then we ended up starting really late. Well, that's because we had multiple issues. Okay, I'm gonna make some kratom here.
So yeah,
where's my camera? There it is. There's my kratom here. Oh, there. I'll give it to you too. You've got a different camera than our audience. Yeah. Anyway, that was my way of saying that. I think we had one person watching for like 30 seconds, and what sucks is that we had some people waiting at 1:30, but then we didn't start because stupid OBS wasn't working right.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess in a way we're still in rehearsal for this product.
Yeah, pretty much. So, you said you tried kratom?
Yeah, hold on, I'm gonna get past this waterfall.
Okay. Oh, oops. I do not want ounces. I want grams, and I'll make. Haven't locked in my dosage, to tell you the truth. I took like 10 once, and it felt like too much.
What was the effects of too much or of that dosage?
Let me remember. Well, maybe it wasn't too much. Well, it might have gave me a little bit of an upset stomach. I forget. And it was definitely pretty strong in a like feeling kind of drunk way, but not like in a I really couldn't drive. But so maybe it wasn't too much. Maybe it was just right.
I just been seeing recommendations for like much lower uh, quantities of that. So I'm wondering if I think kratom varies quite a bit in its potency and alkaloid makeup across all the various species and kind of like branded, names for them.
There, I put in kratom. I'm gonna put in some tea as well, just for taste. Although the kratom has such a strong taste, the tea doesn't seem to make much difference. I'm trying to figure out how to make it taste better. But although kratom doesn't taste horrible, it's better than kava. Well, depending on your taste. If you like dirt, then you're gonna like kava.
Although you're not really supposed to drink on kava, are you?
What'd you say?
Kava and alcohol, is that a bad combo?
Well, I don't think there's really. That's a great question, and I don't really know yet for sure. The thing is that both kratom and kava, part of their role, part of the whole point, is that they
replace
alcohol, right? So that doesn't mean that doing it with alcohol is necessarily a terrible thing. But it's not. It's not normal, since replacing kratom replacing alcohol for a lot of people is the whole point.
Yeah. Yeah. In general, alcohol is kind of a bad combo with most drugs. Like you can pretty much, add cannabis to anything and it's fine, but alcohol doesn't do well with most things. I've noticed.
You think?
Yeah, that's. I mean, you could think of some easy examples, Anyway, seems if you're following the protocols of harm reduction, that's kind of in there somewhere.
Yeah. Although I would generally, the problem is I actually do that. Is I think mostly you just need to really be mindful. That alcohol, you got to be really careful with it if you're going to mix it with other things. But at the end of an acid trip, you go to the bar and have a beer or two.
Yeah, that's true. Psychedelics. You want to tell us? So you made some kratom. You want to tell us what that is?
Let's see.
Because you're thinking about using it for a business, maybe. It sounded like. And then
Let's see. So I'm getting into these legal highs, basically. Like kratom is a well-known one because I want to start a kava bar. Although really, it's going to be a psychedelic. A psychonaut hangout, really. That's what I really want to make. And I want to do, and I'm hoping to get away with like doing salvia there because it's legal in my state. And then, but then
awesome.
Also for like day to day, it'll be on the surface it'll be called a kava bar, and then we'd also have kratom, and I think kratom would be pretty cool for basically what you do instead of alcohol for things like shows. And they'll be like, I'll do like sound bath kinds of stuff, and maybe like, well, I don't teach yoga, but if I could have somebody like do yoga, and that might be cool, and certainly like meditation. But also, my wife is a cellist, and so we could have like classical music there.
Yeah, man, you got your own venue plus cool bar.
So I'm trying to think of. I mean, it's basically like tea, only it's like psychoactive. I need to learn like the history of kratom and the culture. I don't know much about it. I know more about kava now that I think about it. Does kratom, do you think, have a very rich like history?
I've done a little bit of reading, so yeah, not anything like this. But I feel like I've been led to believe that it's more of a recreational and maybe more modern use of it. Although I would find it hard to believe that if it existed, it wasn't used for thousands of years. And if it was used for thousands of years, it would have been used demonically. So I don't know. I'm guessing it would have been, but I feel like I haven't read it. Yeah, it's different than other things. You were telling me about some of the biological properties of it.
Did I? I don't remember any of it. I'm trying to remember.
Really?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the what receptor it hits.
Yeah, so from what I've learned, it hits. There's three main. So I'm not great at this. I think there's three main opioid receptors. There's probably many others, but that one is targeted by salvia, the kappa, right?
Yep.
And that has a particularly psychoactive effect. And then there's one that opiates target, and that's
oh yeah,
the
mu. Does that sound right?
Yeah, there's mu and kappa and one other. Anyway, I saw one of the things that keeps coming up around kratom is that it triggers an opiate receptor. I've read people can kick opiate habits with the help of kratom.
Yes.
The chemical that agonizes the receptor is different from opiates, but it still has an effect on that receptor. So it's kind of in an opiate effect, which I did it once, and I had a market experience for sure. And the whole time I was like, does this feel, to me it felt like it was bringing me into just the meaning of how the moment feels. Like if you imagine, I imagine opiates as less information and more like immediate sort of physical sense connection to whatever. As a,
well, that's an interesting way to put it, because it doesn't obviously have a lot of depth. Kratom.
It doesn't have a lot of height almost.
Maybe a lot of what?
Height, as opposed to depth. Like psychedelics to me feel very in the head, like the other side of the body.
Huh.
Or it includes the head because there's a body load. Yeah, I don't know. So I was wondering if that was an opiate kind of feeling, that lack of depth.
Yeah, you're right. It's culturally, it's most known as something that really helps people get off of opiates. And then people who have a heroin problem or something, uh, uh, will basically change it out for, a kratom habit potentially, but a kratom isn't very unhealthy. So this really helps people. So this really helps people.
Yeah, I would say from what I've read, the impact is probably less severe than alcohol, but like in that direction. Like you can hit it pretty hard, you won't die, but at some point you're not going to feel very good. If you use too
You mean
much,
as far as allowing it to become a habit?
yeah, using it too often. Um,
That's my
so
impression too. Actually, as if I'm giving it to people, I want to I want to be like moral, I want to think about, in my being a good influence on people, because I'm not interested in, getting people addicted to kratom.
yeah, I think that's well. Hey, man, having a having a bar with a mindfulness philosophy like that would be close, or would actually be a first.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I would be surprised if there's people out there doing cool stuff. But
Well, yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. It's not. I mean, it can be used therapeutic, but it definitely has. I liked it. It crept up on me though. I probably was at the bar for half an hour, maybe more, drinking kratom most of the time, and then I was like, I felt, like a few beers, and then I went
really?
home. Yeah, I went home, and then I started getting really faint, and I was washing dishes, and I was like, whoa, I gotta sit down. And so I laid down and really had what to me felt like the more psychedelic side of kratom. Like a real body load, kind of buzzy, but not a tight buzz like acid. And I definitely wanted to just close my eyes, and I felt present. And in fact, it usually I think a lot, and I just have a active inner world, and it kind of quieted all of that. Not the sound of the inner voices, but it just kind of, I'm not sure. It kind of just like mellowed it all out. And
well,
I
that
think
sounds like a pretty positive review.
yeah, it really was. And then the next day, really for the next 2 days, I really felt that everything I had been like worrying about or trying to figure out just didn't matter. Like I just felt really in the moment and in my body, and just like present to what's going on. Not like the future or the past. So yeah, it was. I'm approaching it cautiously, but I ordered some, and we'll see how it is. The guy at the bar said he would recommend 1 gram, at least the stuff he has at the bar, because they sell it. And a drink, 12-ounce drink, the way they do it, has the equivalent of 4 grams of leaf, but the same amount of etrogeny, or whatever it's called, the active alkaloids.
Oh, so they use the chemical in kratom as an additive instead of
No.
just making tea.
No, it just makes it tea. I was just saying the chemical content of one drink, I think, is the equivalent of 1 gram of eating powder. But if you make tea, it's less strong, so you need more for the same potency. Anyway, that was my dosage info. But yeah, I liked it. What was your experience? You took it once or twice,
Um, I am not exactly. I've done it several times, and I don't know if I'm really. I don't exactly have an evaluation yet. Plus, I'm having a hard time always getting it to kick in.
right?
And of course, unlike you, I didn't go to a bar. I didn't have somebody who's done it a million times doing it. I'm just looking at the directions on how to do it.
Oh, I
But I
see.
think I'm doing it right. That's why I'm using quite a bit, is because I've been like, ooh, I didn't feel it. Well, plus this cup that I've got here is not, you know, that's a good 2 helpings. So I put in 7 grams and figured I would drink it in uh, 2 helpings.
Okay. What kind is it? Is the name?
The brand is Nova. Here.
What does
Actually,
it
I
say?
got it. I'm putting it in your camera now, and I'll put it in the other one in a second.
All right, I can't really read it, but is it say a strain name like red,
Oh,
white, green, and then
it's a red Vietnam.
oh, okay.
You can tell it's red since it's bright green. I don't know why they do it by color.
So the way the leaves grow, the veins in the leaf change colors as the leaf ages. And it starts off red and turns to green and then white. Uh, is that right? No, maybe it's the opposite. Can't remember. Anyway, and then the leaf color doesn't change as much. And most people classify them like they do cannabis. And I've heard a lot of mixed thoughts on whether one strains that from another, but popularly there's red for targeting pain, physical pain, and green is like a recreational kind of euphoric, like weed kind of. And then
Yeah.
white is more of a stimulant and would be used, say, earlier in the day. And I think the difference is there's a lot of like 40 or 50 active alkaloids in the plant, and the ratios change as the plant ages. So I think it might have something to do with that. And then it sounds like what could start off as a stimulating dosage with white, if you take more, it'll be more euphoric. It'll almost change its quality from like coffee to, cannabis, and then like heroin or something.
And then heroin. And then we get to the
Probably
heroin.
a bad. Maybe I shouldn't use that as an example. But whatever. Something really heavily sedating. So that, I don't know if that helps to consider what you're targeting.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, especially I'm using red, which isn't, according to your information, isn't for heavier. What was it, more for pain?
Yeah, that was more sedating. That would be like an indica.
Here, I'll be right back. Okay.
All right. I don't know who's all is on this call, but it's kind of nice out here. I hike in all these parks since I drive around and play the piano everywhere, and have done that for a lot of years. So yeah, got these weird parks. I really don't like buildings and cars. I like the convenience, but it's important to know what we're made out of, like for real made out of, not matter that has time demands and lifestyle demands and, I don't know, demands of what we believe. Like trees don't do that, only people do that. Good to know that there's a choicefulness in there, how much you expose yourself to. It's not fundamentally real or important. It's just really important to some people to follow a certain protocol in life. But this live stream is for free thinkers. And That's what Chris and I have been doing for a long time, is trying to push the limits of free thinking. So here we are.
We do not push the limits of humility, though.
says the Catholic martyr. Yeah, it's Good Friday.
I wasn't gonna smoke weed, but I think I might take a little bit.
Dude, you need to relax, bro.
I think I do need to relax.
All right, here we go.
I'm near the end of this book about psychedelic cults.
Oh yeah, how is it?
It is a very interesting book. There has been there's been oops, I just dropped something.
Pretty nice.
There have been a lot of especially it's mostly is about like 60s, mostly 60s groups. I mean groups in the 60s in America is the specialization of the book. So it doesn't have like Brazilian ayahuasca groups and stuff like that. And what I have learned, the big picture is, number one, you'll probably go to jail. And they tend to they start out when somebody has an amazing spiritual experience while on psychedelics. That's not too surprising. And then they decide, it's always a white male boomer who decides that he's going to save the world. And then it turns into either a drug cartel. They either become drug cartels or sex cults. Both of those happen a couple times. There was I'm trying to think. There was one that was. Oh, did I tell you about this story? It's really funny. There was one called the Brotherhood in Los Angeles, like in the 70s. And it started the way it started out. The way it started out was a great story. There was these hoodlums in like teenage hoodlums, literally like gang members, right? And they heard that this is in the early 70s or late 60s, and they heard there's this new thing called LSD. And so how do you get it? Well, the way they did it is they lived like in Hollywood. So they went to this big Hollywood like party with these like famous movie stars, and they broke in with like guns and masks and stuff, and like held up these like famous movie stars and said, and it was at the house of some like director. I forget who it was. I hadn't heard of them, but it said that this is like an important director or something in LA, right? Okay, so they've got these guns and these masks, these teenage kids, right? And they say, give us all of your LSD. And the director said, oh gosh, thank God, I thought this was going to be something serious. So he gives them his stash of LSD and says, have fun, boys. So they go out. They take way too much. They each take like 10 hits or something, right? And they have this crazy spiritual experience where they decide to give up guns and being hoodlums, and instead being male boomers. They decide they're going to save the world with psychedelics, but they still have roots like in drug dealing and stuff. And so they start like a commune, and they ended up becoming like the biggest, like literally one of the biggest drug cartels in the world, mostly for marijuana and LSD. And at one point they were sitting on like millions of hits of LSD.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But they were actually pretty honest too. I mean, they were both like a honest psychedelic religion that really was trying to like hit the whole world because they thought that the psychedelics had this wonderful power, and but they were also really a drug cartel. We're moving like millions and millions of dollars of weed and LSD.
Yeah, it's really interesting when that psychedelic energy through all those different drugs that came out, right, 50s and 60s, at least to popular use. It was interesting to see kind of what effect it had on the larger culture and then how that kind of carried out. Um, but yeah, kind of blew up a bunch of crazy shit with like cults like that and Leary, and finally government kicks in and then drives all underground. Yeah,
It made me actually feel, like sort of frustrated and angry too, because you've got this. You read about all of these different groups that are all doing this, right? And it happens over and over again, where you've got like hippies mostly, but it doesn't matter. People who take psychedelics, they really do like have this rich spiritual life, and they want to make it dominate their life and give it to other people. And then over and over again, they just like they don't always go to jail all the time, but they like a lot of them go to jail. Now, I should say that the book concentrates on the bigger ones that are more famous, and it's the bigger ones that are more famous that go to jail more. There's plenty of people who are a little bit smaller, or people who are really underground. This one really concentrates on a lot of these people wanted to fight, they wanted to get arrested. These are activists. And so it's got an activist vibe too, and they're doing their best to break this ground, and it's been going on for decades. Actually, the biggest one was Native American. It's a pretty well-known religion. The Church of Native, I forget what it's called.
The peyote eaters.
Well, yeah, it's mostly peyote, yeah.
Native American Church, I think is what I've heard it called.
The Native American Church of North America. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Native American Church of North America. They got permission from the DEA, I think. Well, it was before that. But they were fighting in courts in the early 20th century for their right to do peyote, and they won. And that created the precedent of basically letting folks get away with it if they're like native and if they're doing a traditional religion. The problem is that you've got people in decision making who are making these decisions who think that drugs are inherently bad, and that even if you really are religious, you're still weird and you're still part of the problem. They just might give you permission to do it anyway. Also, these are people in the DEA or the IRS who don't really know anything about religion. They don't, these aren't mystics or scholars.
Right. Yeah, they're lawmakers or enforcers.
Sorry, I had to take a break to take a hit.
Man, cannabis is the best. Everyone needs to be smoking weed.
I wonder if you can get too much. Has anybody had a problem of breaking a microphone by getting too much resin on it?
Actually, yeah. All music gear, people selling their gear will say that it's been kept in a smoke-free environment.
Yeah, that's true. You see that all the time.
Yeah. But that could just be like the old hi-fi, lo-fi debate, where everyone knows MP3s sound identical to WAV files.
I don't completely disagree with you, but I also know that some people have more finely tuned ears for such things than others.
To hear absolutely nothing made up propaganda. What they're hearing?
Dude, those people, there are people with really good ears for timbre, and they would probably talk about the difference between two different dominant chords and be like, this is ridiculous. They sound the same. They're both dissonant and they both function as a dominant chord.
While we're on the topic, all drugs do the exact same thing. They just make you dizzy. That's it.
You think
Anyone who says anything different is making shit up.
I don't think that I realize that is your theory. I don't think it helps your case as trying to tell the world that you know something about these things.
You know, obviously we're in this for the consciousness, but the reason I like the word drugs is the same reason I like to say that all they do is make you dizzy. Sometimes it's good to have a reality check and just say, I'm taking drugs. Don't make it fancy. Don't make it sacred. Don't try to like secretly rationalize it by turning into something else. You're taking drugs. You know, it's just a word. But are they making you high or awakened or putting touch with your inner child? No, they're just making you dizzy. And the other stuff. Most of the time. But sometimes. So that's all. That's the the integrated. That's the integrated spiritual life, tongue-in-cheek approach to mysticism.
Well, you know, I've got a phrase that is a little bit like that. It's that it's not about whether your drug use is therapeutic or recreational. It's a false dichotomy. The real dichotomy is responsible versus irresponsible.
Yeah. There you go.
You could even imagine somebody ostensibly taking psychedelics for therapy, but they are doing it in a really bad way, and they A, won't have very good therapy, and B, might even hurt themselves.
Your word is intentional. What was your word?
Well, I just said responsible.
Oh, responsible? Yeah, man, exactly. Right. Drugs are exciting, you know, and it's culturally marginalized in Western society anyway. So you're going to have some level of curiosity, excitement, and rebellion, but that does ultimately kind of get in the way of what the path ultimately is. I think. You've always said that about our stuff, that you know, we're doing psychedelics work, but it's a little more rock and roll, because some measured amount of fuck it, turn it up to 11 is kind of healthy.
Yeah, although I mean, most of us, when we have tripped over the years, I mean, even though we're always talking about spirituality and stuff, we're not very ritualistic or anything about how we do things. I mean, a little bit, but I mean, it's pretty recreational, strictly speaking. But that doesn't mean that we don't know what we're doing, and it doesn't mean we don't get anything out of it. Basically, it's weird, because when it comes to drug use, there's this idea that like having fun is irresponsible or something. But like for sports, nobody's like, oh, you played basketball because it was fun instead of to get, you know, to get for the exercise, you had fun, you know.
Yeah, man, totally. Yeah, totally. That's like so 50s Puritan kind of old school America, religious sadness. Yeah, people are always trying to figure out what to do with drugs. They don't have somewhere to put it. It's really hard to just kind of let it be a path or an additive to life, you know, for all sorts of reasons. You know, I would say we're post-ritualistic. Because
you mean the way we do things?
Well, we've sat at ashrams for weeks on end.
That's true.
Sat meditation, lived in ashrams. We've done Abrahamic monotheism, both of us for a long time in different ways. I still do in my work. We've done New Age and kind of like modern spiritual various things, so-called, you know, done psychedelics in ritual settings. Fuck, you did a master's in divinity. Is that right?
Yep. Or
Yeah. So,
it started out in divinity, then I changed to theology, but that's a detail.
oh, well, okay, yes, I remember that. So I don't know. I'm just, at the same time, sometimes drugs just make you dizzy. You're taking drugs. Sometimes you're taking a sacrament, and you better fucking do it right. Otherwise, whatever, you're not actually gonna gain anything. And so there's a disciplined, extreme, kind of like get high and jam kind of extreme. And I think all of it's important. You got to know the whole. Yeah. I err on the side of laziness to some disciplines, some not. So, it's good to watch out for, but I don't meditate formally every day, but I do try to maintain a practice throughout the day. So, has its value. Anyway.
It's hard for me to say whether I meditate every day. I would say I meditate every day, but I'm not very formal about it. Like I don't have a set time, and I don't have a cushion or like mantras that I use every day or something like that. Because other than brushing my teeth, I'm not a very I do it every day kind of guy.
Do you find that you're examining, your mind or the contents of your mind kind of mindfully throughout the day?
Yeah, actually. I do it pretty, like a certain meditative or spiritual kind of attitude is definitely influences just who I am. Well, especially in the way that you just said it. I'll have negative emotions, or I'll even be having a temper tantrum or something, but on some level I am sort of like observing it at the same time, and I'm aware of that observation. I'll be like, oh wow, I'm having a temper tantrum. I'm like, I wonder if I'm about to throw something. Oh, sure enough, I did.
Yeah, that makes two of us. It made me think that meditation is the practice, but mindfulness is the result. And at some point, you can actually connect to a state of mindfulness directly. Like whatever you're doing in your life, you can get there in some way, and that itself becomes its own practice of sustaining. Maybe city meditation cultivates mindfulness, and, everything else sustains it. No, I think they both cultivate. Anyway, that's a.
Well, I mean, really, isn't that the hope? Is that it's not just that you're reaching these states; it's that these states are making permanent changes in who you are.
Yeah, permanent, right? That you can access without sitting, because let's be honest, sitting's boring. So if you can go, smoke weed and take a hike, you do the same thing. That's.
I do not find sitting boring, to tell you the truth, but. I'd almost say that everything other than meditation is boring. But I know what you mean.
Yeah. I don't like moving around unnecessarily. I will say that. So I think I meditate kind of instinctively a lot, because if I have nothing to do physically, I just want to sit there and kind of be calm. So I have been researching some new plant medicines I'm interested in. You want to hear about them?
Sure.
So it was inspired by all the stuff kratom and kava you've been experimenting with, and I don't know, all of a sudden I had this like, wait a second, these kratom to me has always felt like this fringe, underground, kind of seedy, like slightly rebellious and angry, like marginalized subculture vibe. And
You've got more of a kratom stereotype than I even have.
and I went to this bar, and it was like Eddie the first time. And so I don't know. I never did it for no good reason. For no good reason, I just never did kratom. So you brought it up, and Kava, and I was like, well, fuck. There's a lot of other cool shit out there that's like really legit, has a lineage. Not that that totally matters. And I'd like to try because I feel my psychedelics practice splitting. And
Wait, your psychedelic practice is doing what?
yeah, splitting, like going in different directions. I don't know what it has been. General kind of, interest in everything, but I want to explore some high dose stuff, and I also want to explore some more like workaday kind of cannabis level.
Yeah, exactly.
Level, yeah. And so there's a lot of them out there. And the ones that I chose, first off, are Kana, which I've used in the past, but never formally enough to really get it. And I got a 400X, I think.
So you've done it before? I've read about it. I've never done it. It is on my list of things to try. But I've also, I watched a video by the famous YouTuber Psych Substances. He's like the top drug YouTube channel, and they weren't very impressed. They didn't feel it. But
Kana. Oh yeah, it's also ritualistic. So anyway, I think it's an African succulent. So grows somewhere wet. I'll give a report on that. Kana, I've heard it mentioned in like psychonaut circles. And then Blue Lotus.
Yes, I have done that.
Oh, you have? And what do you think?
Well, when I worked at a metaphysical shop years ago, actually, in a lot of ways, the kava bar that I want to start is modeled off of this metaphysical shop that I worked in. God, almost 20 years ago now, believe it or not.
Yeah, nice.
Crazy, right? And we had Blue Lotus in. It was a tincture. And I would put it in my drink sometimes and didn't really notice, but then when I drank like half the bottle, it felt pretty buzzy.
Yeah. I've heard people say, it feels a little bit like kratom, a little bit like cannabis. It can get more or less intense. You can smoke it. I think it comes on pretty hard that way. So I ordered 200X of that, and I'm kind of halfway between. I like this. I learned this word psychedelic, and if psychedelic is above a certain threshold of a psychoactive experience, under that threshold is psycholytic, and that that boundary is movable. But not. This isn't microdosing, because you actually want to feel it, and you're gonna, in part, organize your day around it, because it's impactful enough that you got to keep it in mind. Anyway, so I'm really curious about having these kind of like halfway effects. But I never found traditional psychedelics good in that zone.
You mean lower?
Well, microdosing I'm fine with, but but mini dosing, I kind of need to be in it enough, otherwise I just feel weird.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah.
That's not really my experience. I'm the opposite. But you're not alone.
Yeah. Of course, I think this is like really popular, the whole cup of coffee analogy. Anyway, so Blue Lotus was one, and then the third, which I'm really excited about, is Amanita muscaria, and that has a potency e- easily equivalent to psilocybin and acid and all the big ones. So
Yeah.
that's
It's funny that it's legal because it's like the real deal.
the deal. That's Datur is not illegal either. There's really there's no social issue large enough for the government to spend money worrying about it, because it's that, the effect is what it is, and so not a lot of people do it. And why regulate it? That's my. But there's a lot of amphibiosites, and there's 3 species I learned. There's Panthera and Amanita regalis. Um, and I did a lot of research in chemistry. Um, it's possible that Panthera is missing muscazole, which is a very minute kind of chemical presence in the mushroom, where muscarol or muscimol and ibotenic acid are the biggest ones. So the mushrooms seem to differ somehow. I'll probably try another species if I like this first batch. And then you really consider the chemical ratio in the mushrooms. So maybe a little bit like sativa or a indica, but ibotenic acid and muscimol are intense and specific enough in their effect. You really want to consider how much of each one you want in there.
Right.
That will radically change the experience. Ibotenic acid is stimulating at the glutamate site, and then muscimol is stimulating at the GABA site, so really kind of sedating, and muscimol revs you up. Ibotenic acid revs you up, but there's a lot of fear that it's neurotoxic, so I went with a 50%. I don't know the absolute ratios, but whatever amount of ibotenic acid they have when they start, they cut that in half. And I think that amount is pretty low already, because you dry the mushrooms, which starts the conversion. And your body does it too. So I think the experience would be most stimulating at front, and that dies off. And then you're left with this kind of, more euphoric. So, we'll see. I'll probably start low, and I'll give you a report. But I really want to. Oh, and then there's some dream drugs. I really want to explore this terrain, because I do find in my daily experience, not every day, and I really try to limit it to, 2 or maybe 3 days a week. But I find that regularly changing my frame of mind keeps me more fluid and kind of flexible in my life, to think of solutions, to let some things go that I don't need to worry about, and to change my whole perspective on what exists or what matters and why. I've really been looking for some plants besides cannabis, because as much as I like it, I just am curious about other things. So I think I found a few, and I'm excited how they, what they do for me. I've really, for a while, considered each drug effect to be a type of map where you think differently, you have different, your mind and body work differently, and that gives you access to different kinds of ways of thinking and kind of what am I trying to say? Not intellectual content, basically cognitive content. You can, imagine things differently, or blend realities or dimensions, however. So I think that's part of what life's about. And if I get to do that, I'm happy. And if I don't, then it all feels like bills and driving and waiting in line, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing this for? This isn't producing anything good for anybody. So yeah, that's keep me on the straight and narrow. Drugs are keeping me on the straight and narrow. Are you looking at anything else? Oh yeah, I was gonna say there's three dream drugs. Blue Lotus being one of them, but there's three others that I just have the Latin names at home, and I'm curious about those two. I guess you take them at night, and they kind of a traditional. Yeah, are you looking at other stuff?
Let me think. Kratom and kava are kind of the things right now.
Yeah.
I should take a sick. In fact. Kana is on my radar. Basically the same as you, really. Well, actually, this is not a new drug, but something I want to start experimenting with more is with salvia, is doing it with chewing it rather than smoking it.
All right.
That's something I want to experiment more with. I've done it a little bit. Well, I did it the other day, and it was unsuccessful. I don't think I used enough.
Are you preparing it from dried leaf?
Yeah, that's how you do it. From my understanding, is extract doesn't even work, but I want to try that anyway to make sure and do my own experiment, because if extract did work, it would be extremely convenient.
Yeah, we talked about that. I pulled mine out and a tincture to give it a shot. See, I haven't done it yet though.
Let's
all right,
see. Well,
cool.
Is there any? I mean, yeah, Blue Lotus. It's funny, you get into these weird areas, things that most people have never heard of. And then, actually, there was something I wanted to bring up. This isn't about specific substances that we're talking about. It's we identify as psychonauts, and there's so much emphasis on how good psychedelics are. But some of these things that we're talking about, kratom, kava, clear alcohol, clearly are not psychedelic really at all. So I am finding my attitude broadening about, I mean, I'm not about to use crack or heroin, but maybe other kinds of drugs, if they can be used safely and if they can be integrated into your life in a meaningful way, what would be wrong with that, rather than being like, oh, well, it's all about psychedelics, they're the only ones that are okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you keep saying it's not about all that other stuff. It's about mindfulness. It's about responsibility. It's about, education. It's about appropriate, about protocol. That's what it's about. You can fly around a nuclear fighter jet, and smoke crack at the same time. And if you're doing it responsibly, whatever that means in that context, then there's nothing wrong with either of those.
Maybe the fighter jet.
Not being high on crack while you're flying.
No, I'm saying just don't be flying a fighter jet. You're already doing something wrong with your life if you find yourself flying a fighter jet.
Oh, yeah. Only break one. That's the problem. I think that's the cornerstone of education right there. You're saying, if you do it wrong, here's 56,000 things that are going to happen bad, and all the shit we're going to have to do to deal with it, and now it's a social crisis. But, that's the loudest thing in the room. And then, if you stop fussing about that, you actually learn what these things are and how to use them and what they do, and how to get the most out of them, then, you have a balanced society. I mean, I suppose, I don't know, in some communities, sex and dancing is such a big problem. Kind of miss out, make things hard on yourself.
Well, I mean, Of course, some things are going to naturally be worse than others. I doubt that there's much responsible crack smoking going on out there.
No, and
But there might be a little bit. You never know.
It depends what you get out of it, and that's where it gets pretty subjective, you know? If smoking crack once a week is all that you can use to not murder people, then that's better than murdering people, I guess. I don't know how that would even work, but
in theory. Yeah, in theory.
But yeah, that's what we were saying. Well, what is there to get out of this stuff? What is appropriate living? But of all the goals you can have in life, what are the highest or best goals? What does that even mean to an individual? So if you're making any choice, why are you going to make that choice? What are you trying to get out of it? I don't know if crack has a lot of information in it, and I didn't find, there's other drugs, information is not first. I did try Mormon tea. That's
oh yeah, I read something about that the other day. It's related to tell me about it.
Well, legend has it's in the ephedrine genus, I guess. And ephedra is a plant that's really hard to get, and it has ephedrine in it, and it's a stimulant. I could be wrong. I was getting nervous when I started talking science, but the molecule it's based off of is more related to MDMA and mescaline than tryptamine, which are psychedelics we know about. And they still work at the serotonin level. So I was curious about a substitute for. I was curious to try that shape chemical. And pseudoephedrine is a less potent stimulant, which the Mormons used when they got to Utah. It grows in the desert because they weren't allowed by religion to drink coffee or consume caffeine. So they used this plant instead. God, I guess thought that was okay.
Wait, who did this?
The Mormons.
Oh, and that's how it got to be called Mormon tea.
Yeah, and I definitely it's a little peppery, the flavor. It's like kratom plus pepper, maybe. I don't know. It just tastes kind of green. It tastes good.
Yeah.
And I didn't like. I tried it a couple times. It just made me kind of aggro. Like the pressure, like my blood pressure built up in my head, and that was kind of it. And then I just felt like, so I wasted, $15 on that.
And that's all, you took it all? So that it was your one experiment?
I probably used half the bag. I could try it again, but, sometimes at first I was unsure about kratom. I'm curious. These other ones. There's a lot of, if you start looking at the chemistry of all these plants, you realize that you can kind of do your own experimentation, If you move an oxygen molecule on an oxygen atom on one molecule, it's going to work really different in the body. And some of these chemicals you can get, because they're legal. And right now I'm in the middle of spirit molecule.
Wait, what do you mean?
DMT, the spirit molecule. I can't remember the author's name. You're talking
about a book you're reading.
Yeah. It's a well-known book on DMT.
Have you ever read that famous book by Michael Palin?
Oh, Pollen. I need
Yeah,
to
Palin,
read.
I mean.
Yeah. I think he has some interesting chapters on consciousness, which is really kind of what I'm interested in. I've had my fill of history and sociology, which is cool. But yeah, really. So I no. The short answer is no. I skimmed through chapters that I didn't want to read, and then but I like to read it here. Yeah, man. There's obviously the Renaissance is a big deal. There's a lot of heavyweights.
Hi there, you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Some of your audio's gotten a little funny in the last 5 minutes or so. I mostly
really?
understood you though. I've had such a hectic morning. It feels good to like play a little bit.
Yeah, I woke up, played some gospel music.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you play gospel music at home? Like for yourself?
I have a list of things I keep trying to get myself to do and keep not doing them, and that's fun. Because the truth is, I really need to practice it. It's a whole language that I'm not that familiar with. Like, I can fake it well, but at some point, I either need to like do it for real or kind of real. So I actually reached out to this guy Solomon Chapter about lessons. He seems really well respected, so see what's up. I'm playing Good Friday tonight at House Sunday, Easter.
Oh, for Easter at House of Hope. Yeah. So Jeremy's got this gig playing piano in a almost all black gospel church. And Jeremy is outwardly at least not black.
Yeah. It's funny, there's this kind of like tongue-in-cheek, kind of teasing kind of vibe, where especially around the musicians, the music director, well, everyone's black. The music director would say, "Yeah, I got this gig, and I got this great player." And I was like, "Is he?" And I never knew how to ask. Is he like white, black? Because sometimes it's a relevant question. And the music director's like, "He looks like you. Doesn't look like me." I was like, "That's a good." That's a good. But it's a joke. I mean, fucking almost every Sunday after he like think he really appreciates the musicians, and after every sermon he'll acknowledge the musicians and talk about each one, and he's a great guy, but he always singles me out because I'm like this kind of short, nerdy Jewish, white guy, and everyone else is just like, African queen or like, hipster pimp. And so I obviously stick out, but I love being there and I feel super at home, but he's always saying something like, we've turned into a brother, or
yeah,
I wasn't sure if you could pull it off, but you really did. And, yeah, anyway, that's my gig.
Yeah, it's funny that time when I came and saw you play. It was like, it's so ironic that like you were obviously in your like element.
Yeah.
And I've seen you meaty plays play not in your element.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And when I first joined, and I started having these intense experiences, like all across the board, I was getting all this positive feedback about the energy of my playing, which I was really wondering if it was there, here that reflected, and then people.
Oops.
I started having this experience with Jesus.
With what?
With Jesus. Anyway, it is kind of mind blowing. All these things happen.
Yeah, I'm starting to not be able to hear you again.
Oh, all right, hold on. Is that better?
Yeah.
All I was saying is right. It's ironic. And it was kind of mind-blowing when I started going, all these life-changing things kind of happened at once.
That's how you find Jesus.
Yeah, man. It's true. I was, anyway, yeah.
Well, you were already a Buddhist Jew. Now you can be a Buddhist Jewish Buddhist Jewish Christian too. Oh yeah, somebody reminded me that I should drink my tea. That's probably true. Guys, we have not had a very big audience at all. We've had I think we had like 5 people at once, but this guy Hayes Anderson has been with us the whole time commenting.
Oh, what's up, Hayes?
Yeah, he told me to drink my tea.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna eat some food pretty soon.
I did smoke a little bit of weed too, but
oh yeah,
it's still early. We don't want to hit it too hard. I'm not a big daytime, not like you. Well, I mean, not that you smoke a lot, but you doing it during the day is your thing.
Yeah, that's really kind of I like devoting when I can. I like devoting my day to the experience. I find that I get more out of it because I don't know. I mean, if you're actually devoting your day to it, this means something. Gives you space.
That location's not bad, but it's not Chautauqua Park.
Yeah.
So I did go back to Meow Wolf again in
cool.
And Charlotte my 9-year-old got to see it for the first time. Omega Mart in Las Vegas. It's so cool. You know, when I was there, I was thinking. Well, I'm reading this book about these psychedelic religions and how they always are oppressed. It's so sad because there is this. People don't think of. How do you put it? They don't think, there's a pattern of psychedelic religions or psychedelic churches, and this is something that people have been doing for a long time. Most not even psychonauts really think about that being a pattern, but when you put it in a book, you're like, oh, here it is, right? And the pattern is that they always get screwed. Actually, the one religion in there that was still really successful, I mean, some of them done better than others, and some of them are still a little bit around, even ones from the 60s. But one that it talked a lot about, or had a whole section about, that is still going strong. In fact, it was the only one that's still going really strong, and he didn't have anything negative to say, and they aren't going to jail, is the, I forget what it's called, but it's the marijuana church in Denver.
Oh, no kidding. Wow, they were in the book, and that was one of the few that hasn't gotten in trouble.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
But I'm trying because I'm into this stuff. I'm into the spirituality and even religion with psychonauts or with psychedelics. So I want to learn as much as I can, and I'm really glad that I'm reading the book. And so I'm looking at patterns. Like I was joking earlier about how they either become drug cartels or sex cults. Well, those are real patterns. And if you become a sex cult, that you're probably going to get in trouble, because if there's one thing that mainstream society doesn't want to put up with just as much as drug cults, it's sex cults. So if you're both, you're not going to last.
They learned it from Osho.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Um, and then the drug, yeah, the cartel. The thing is that you're around drugs, and it's you need money, and you believe in the drugs, and so you end up selling it, and then you're a drug cartel. That's what happens to some of these churches. Uh, but what I wanted to get to is why did what's different about the marijuana church in the elevationists, I think? Well, it hasn't been around that long, but it's been around a few years now, and they haven't had any problems. But they're doing some things that are different. Uh, the biggest thing, well, it's in Colorado where marijuana is legal, right? That's a pretty big deal. Number two is they don't sell drugs at all. They're not even giving them to them. They early on they realized that it wasn't worth it for them to actually give the medicine out, and so they just have people show up with their own stash.
Oh, that's a good call.
Well, in Colorado with marijuana, you can do that because you just go to the store and buy it. So why take the chances of giving it out, right?
Yeah.
They're also over 21 only, and they only have members. So they do a lot of vetting. So it is hard for the man to come down on them. They don't have oodles of money. So if you were going to break them up and go find their stash of millions of dollars, well, they don't have the millions of dollars because they're not selling drugs. And they're not breaking any of those rules about selling drugs. They are maybe breaking rules about public consumption, but then it's not exactly public consumption because their rituals are member only. So they're pretty darn legal, and they're not getting in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of something authentic about it too. You know, if you're really in for the religious consciousness, spiritual experience, then like you focus on that, given your political climate, however you can, you know.
Yeah, and it depends a lot also on how hard you want to fight. Because some of them end up getting in fights because they want the fight. You know, they're activists and they are seeking out the fight because they want to change things. And I think the one in Colorado probably isn't that way. The Scylla Temple in Eugene is too new and it hasn't shown up. It probably would have been in that book, but it's not because the book just came out, but the Scylla Temple is only a year old. But they're actually a pretty major group comparatively, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because there aren't a whole lot of these bigger groups around. There are a few, but you know, not millions.
The temple in Oakland has a whole different business model, right?
Yeah, well, they are really riding the edge of selling drugs there, from what I understand. You have to become a member, but what they do is tourists will come in, sign up as a member, and then they're giving it for a donation or something like that. So they have, I guess, like hundreds of thousands of members, but most of these people are people who showed up, signed on the dotted line just so that they could get access, and they're not like actually active members. Scylla Temple in Eugene probably has 150 members, maybe. I'm hoping.
Okay.
Yeah, we're having some financial problems, so I'm hoping we've got decent membership. And then most of the rituals are 30 to 50 people. 30 to 50 people every other weekend or every other week.
I'm excited.
What's that?
I'm excited to come have the experience at Scylla Temple.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to come up.
Yeah, I guess it's good to be clear where you are in the Renaissance, you know.
Well, it's a little scary when there's this book about people doing similar things and all of them go to jail. It makes you a little bit nervous.
Although, when you say that this pattern extends from present time, basically without significant gaps back, I don't know, 60, 70 years or more.
Most of the book is really about the 60s and 70s.
Okay, yeah.
There have been there's like few more modern ones, and there's the old one, the Native American, but it was apparently mostly just Native Americans doing peyote.
Yeah.
Till like the 60s.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is pretty new. Yeah, a lot of the major movement, Gordon Watson, like the mainstream media didn't pick it up until early 60s. Oh, man. Yeah, it's funny. I guess we didn't really plan it this way, but we both kind of dove into studying this stuff around the same time, and then trying out some new things around the same time.
Yeah, well, we influence one another.
Yeah, you, as often happens, you gravitated towards sociology, and I gravitated towards, I don't know, psychology, I guess.
Yeah, I am actually really more interested with it when it comes to the psychedelic renaissance. To me, like it can help you thing is just obvious, and I'm not that. I'm not even like that interested in all the research and stuff necessarily, because I'm like, yeah, well, duh. That's just scientists, like figuring out what we already knew. So in a lot of ways, 100%. I sort of follow the history and the sociology a little bit more, and I find it more interesting.
Yeah. I don't quite know. I am drawn to all that stuff, and ultimately I would like to devote more of my time to coaching people in their psycho-emotional healing, and use these substances in that endeavor. So I guess I want to take it all the way to real world application, and I think I'm close. I kind of my concept is to mainly work with artists, and what they're going through may or may not be artist specific. Everyone gets confused, but not everyone gets creatively blocked. So we'll see. I don't quite know how to launch it, but that's kind of my idea. And I've had some good results with some tester clients, so some point I'll figure it out.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, you're right. It really does help, and I find it kind of endlessly interesting to think about what it does, and most importantly, why it works the way it does. I've heard a lot of quotes to the effect that most drugs fix something, but psychedelics just make you aware of the problem, so your mind kind of comes up with the solution more readily. And what you have is a solution and the knowledge that comes along with finding it, and that's a more empowered state than something just fixing you.
Yes, I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah,
that's one reason I think that putting it in the medical box, I mean, there's good reason to do that, but there's also something that's different. It doesn't just do it for you. It doesn't just change your mind, your brain. Like, it's more like opening doors so that you can actually fix or develop things yourself consciously.
Yeah, it literally turns on and empowers like different aspects of discernment and sense perception and imagination that's usually shut off. And so that's when you get some of the kind of creative propaganda or whatever around psychedelics having that effect. But yeah, which is fascinating then, because it shows you that self-awareness is like the center of everything, or the mind is the center of illness, physical illness even, which is where it's working, right? Like, stress can make you physically ill, or becoming aware of your inner state can relieve the suffering that then relieves the physical illness if that's what it's caused, what it's caused by. So yeah, it's cool to kind of look at how that works, and this nexus of different domains you don't usually put together.
Oops.
Your seaboard playing is pretty clean.
It's pretty what?
It's like
Oops. Yeah. It's my mission, I think. It's not really my mission, but I like the idea of the seaboard being like the instrument of the modern psychedelic movement.
yeah, all right.
Because it's such a like inherently psychedelic instrument. And of course, you know, the electric guitar was the sound of like the 60s, right? But
yeah,
the electric guitar cannot be the sound of, and you know, and it can't be. Well, I mean, I guess a lot of people would say that like EDM is kind of the sound of modern psychedelia.
oh, yeah, all right, sure.
You can make that argument.
Oh man.
There you go. There's church.
There's church.
And then that happens.
Yeah, it's psychedelic church.
Yeah, it's psychedelic church, yeah. So, when do you think we should call it a day? How are you feeling?
Well, I was kind of thinking through what other interesting things I've been doing in my life. I will say, this might be interesting. My partner Kate and I are looking at buying a large defunct.
Whoa! What happened to your I lost you there for a second.
So
So I got you and Kate are doing something.
Yeah, we're looking at buying a rather large intentional community in southern Oregon. And the process of, well, buying the place, especially at this particular time in our life, kind of perplexed. So a lot of my time, most of my time right now is spent figuring that out, studying psychedelics, and other things, hiking, talking to Chris. And I have some work right now, but as far as interesting things I've been doing, yeah, I think that's a lot of it. I'll have more to say on the new medicines in probably even a week. Yeah. I'm still working on my meditation model. I got some done today.
Oh, right. We talked about that last time. So you actually write these things down, like how you want to meditate, and
yeah.
Developing a meditation.
Yeah, I'm writing down the theory and the practice and my experiences with the practice. And you know, my theory is not just my theory. that when you feel bad, really in any way that mean that, there's energy that wants to move but can't. And energy is kind of metaphorical to say that, maybe you want something to happen in your life and it's not happening yet. Maybe you're feeling like in a low mood and you'd rather feel happier. Maybe, you're trying to run a mile and you're doing well, but you have this rope tied around your leg, and so your blood, can't flow. Energy can mean anything. And because I often deal with discomfort in various ways, something I spend a lot of time doing is considering why this discomfort is happening. And I find that you can actually, in the method I'm using, there's lots of methods. The method I'm using, you can diminish your discomfort by figuring out what energy is trying to move and moving. Use a substitute for the actual energy. Right? When you're not able to do it, you still need a way to accomplish something that feels like that, but you do it for yourself. You're not reliant on something in your environment. Because anything you're reliant on, you're not really in control of if that plays along with what you need. And that lack of control is the discomfort oftentimes. Anything that has a psychological story, but a lot of things do, and what's the word I'm looking for? Acute issues, chronic kind of things. The meditation I do, energy in like a qigong kind of framework, but amongst different other cognitive frameworks, not just the physical body, but space around you, different kind of collections of ideas, like in ontology or metaphysics. It's like you can embody it in a way, and that's kind of the basis of the work I'm doing. And some things work, some things don't. Some things I've really kind of hung on to for a year or more at this point. It's a little new. I've meditated for a long time, but my own work is a little new. And some things that are kind of unfolding, and I come back to them, they don't make sense. But I'd like to make that one of my first published, chapter. I'm kind of looking for an excuse to sit down and actually do the writing. That's the hard part.
Your book. The hard part about writing a book is writing it.
Well, yeah. Exactly. No, I actually producing the content I think is fine, but I don't know quite what I'm using it for because I don't have anybody to give it to yet, which is probably the opposite, but that's where I get stuck. But I do have a bunch of notes are pretty crafted.
Oh, really?
I took you through one last time.
Oh, yeah, yes, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. So, I do get drawn to psychology because I just feel like it's my mission to try, to offer others what I've found to be in a hope that they can feel better too, because feeling bad sucks. And nobody wants to live their life that way. We're all trying to figure out what works, so. I guess that's the other thing I've been working on. Have you thought of names for Pop Bar?
No, actually, I have been. When it comes to knowing how brands and stuff relate to one another, I struggle a little bit and what the name should be, because there is there is the name of this channel, which is Cloudless Rain Visions, and there is our project, which is the House of Sacred Noise, and there is this show, which we're doing the second episode of. Oh yeah, you mentioned changing the name, and I didn't know how serious you were, but I called it again, Drugs, God, Drugs, God, Music.
Okay, right.
But we can discuss that. Or if anybody has, wants to put it in a comment or something, what you think the name of the show should be, we won't do what you say, but we will read your comment. But then I'm like, well, how does the Kava Bar, relate? Does it have a completely different name? And this is my way of saying that no, I actually really do need a name for the Kava Bar, and I don't have one.
I was thinking that if you want it to be a Psychonaut hangout, consider making the name something that only a Psychonaut would know what that meant.
Oh, one thing I was thinking about making it was calling it Are You Experienced?
Oh, that's good.
You like that?
Great. Yeah, oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, do you know that tune?
Yeah.
Do you
sure.
know the reference?
That is. I'm guessing it's acid.
Well, no, I just meant that that's a Jimi Hendrix tune.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great name.
You like that, huh?
Yeah.
Are you experienced Kava Bar?
Especially since music's going to be part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's definitely a reference towards psychedelic music in particular, like you say. Actually, I found a location for it that I haven't even told Aaron, but it's in downtown Corvallis. There is a plot that is for sale. That is a okay-ish house that we could live in, and then it also has a office space that I could build out the business, and in that space, the Kava Bar in that space, and then we would be able to live there and have it too. And, oh man, it would be really nice just to own the property. That way, if that's just one less authority figure basically that I have to deal with, would be a landlord. Because
that's
I tell people, yeah, we're a Kava Bar, but we're also going to be, probably doing salvia, and we're not going to do illegal things there, but we're going to talk about a lot. It'll be implied. So, what do I do? Do I tell straight up a landlord, yeah, this is a psychedelic hangout, and I'm building it to be this awesome place for people to trip? I don't know if I want to tell people that. But if I owned it, I wouldn't have to.
Yeah, that's a good call, man. I think
then it gets hard to finance, though, which you understand that. Jeremy is, while I'm working on starting a Kava Bar, he's buying essentially a retreat center. Or working on it. Or maybe he's not. I haven't talked to him for a few days about it.
We still want it. The plan is moving forward. It feels like it's moving forward at 2 miles an hour, but we're freaking out what direction we're ultimately going. But really, it's not going anywhere very quickly. So we could just kind of chill, but fucking adult stuff and money and real estate, but anyway, yeah, we still want it. It could be really cool.
But it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, it's a lot of buildings, and it's a lot of space to take care of. But I figured we'd find some cool folks that want to live the life and I don't know, just be part of the place, help take care of it.
So having people live with you is definitely part of the model.
Yeah, at least a handful. There's some of the cabins that have more and some that have less utilities. So if we were going to do any kind of short-term rental or, I guess, kind of visitors, they'd have to stay in the valley, which has more utilities, and go on school and live on the hillside. And we'll hook it up. But it's off grid, so it's just kind of cabiny.
Well, I think next week we should, let's just think about things of evolving. These first two have been basically the same. I know personally I was in a better space the first time than the second time. We had a lot of technical problems, and both of us had basically personal stuff going on before we shot today. So it's taken some energy to get into a nice space.
Yeah.
But I would like to experiment soon with having a third person. Oh
yeah, I'm game. I have a couple people in mind too.
Oh yeah? Oh yeah, well let's not talk about that now, I guess, but or we could.
Yeah, let's put.
It'd be great to have basically, people who are interested in drugs, God, and music. It's mostly at least one of those three, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then to have musicians come and do, if they could play, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, well, also probably not something we need to talk about here. However, I do have a whole house all to myself for a couple of months, so might consider what we want to do with it.
Your house?
Yeah, like Folsom. It's going to be just all mine for a couple months.
Oh yeah, well we also need to think about Jeremy and I, the two of us, in the House of Sacred Noise, which is the name of our collaboration, put on psychedelic ceremonies, and it might be time for us to think about, do we want to give it another shot? Our last one, we ended up canceling it because we didn't have enough participants. We had some, but not enough.
Yeah, and yeah, we can. I don't know. We'll see what's up, but it will be fun to have a house. So, yeah, I guess that's our main. Doing the ceremonies. We're giving this live stream a go. Try to find our niche in the psychedelic.
Well, I've got salvia. Not that I get paid for it, but people definitely have given me a niche. They watch my videos if I use the S word, and then they don't watch my videos if I don't.
We should we should name this live stream whatever 3 words gets the most views. Salvia, jazz.
Those are 2 big ones. Talk about, that's like Justin Bieber stuff right there. The number of people we'll have watching that.
And metaphysical Christianity.
Yeah, and gospel music.
And gospel music. Yeah, my I want to start a psychedelic gospel band has gotten a grand total of 1 response in 3 weeks.
Oh, really? Nobody,
yeah.
This is Jeremy's psychedelic gospel band that he wants to start.
I mean, gospel music's the best. Psychedelics are like what we're doing. And, talking philosophy is and meditating is the other thing. So it's a curious combo. But I figure if I get it, if I find the nexus with some people, we'll have something real. So I do have a bass player and possibly a guitarist that could be good. So we'll see what happens.
Would you want a singer?
I do. Yeah, I'd like to have a few if I could. You know, at this point, I consider new music projects hobbies, but I figure if you get the right thing and people have fun, you know, you can take it kind of as far as we want. Be the house band at RU Experience.
Yeah. Well, that's
so.
sort of the one irony is that is that I'm not actually sure it'll fit in very well there, but we'll figure it out.
No. Well, yeah. So I'm also thinking about it more as community than pure music. So, you know, if you find the people that are into the same kind of stuff, it kind of totally doesn't matter what you play or what you talk about, but it's all going to be cool. You know, we don't have to try too hard to find something interesting. We're wired the same way, so it just happens automatically. So yeah, it's been an interesting approach trying to put a new project together.
So you might have, and you told these people explicitly that it was about psychedelics and gospel music.
Yes. The advertisement was about psychedelics and funk music and jazz music, but you know, within 40 minutes of meeting these people, I said stuff, and it was cool. The bass player said, "Well, I'm kind of triggered by contemporary American by you know, let's meet up for beer." So we had a cool conversation, and I just kind of like shared my perspective about what it means to me to feel connected to that, any of that content, the religion, the tradition, the music, the words. And you know, I'm pretty mystical about it. I'm not really hung up on the words that much. I don't find it that interesting. But as a practice, as a mantra, saying Jesus all the time. Actually, there's a Hindu Jesus mantra that I learned. Yesu Bhagavate, Om Sri Yesu Bhagavate Namaha. I think that's it. And it's you know, it's a prayer to Jesus. It just says, you know, I bow to you and recognize your divinity. It kind of rolls off the tongue. So, you know, Jesus is really much bigger than, well, American Christians and, you know, the Middle East back in Jesus' time. There's versions everywhere. So I don't know. You know, it's a experiential thing.
Well, that's I get, like, you've got your sense of using Jesus and using Christianity is triggering because you know, they may even have trauma associated with it, or even if they don't have trauma, they've got a lot of stereotypes. I mean, they probably think you're a Republican, or you know, whereas you're coming from a tradition like with the mantra that you're talking about of using like Jesus as in more of a kind of Indian kind of way.
Yeah, it's Christ consciousness. It's what was the experience Jesus was having, and how did that make him feel and act and perceive and treat other people? What was going on inside him? That's what we're focusing on cultivating. Everything else is just a way to get there. And most traditions don't have that as the center. That's my center. Uh, and I don't know, man. To replace Christian trauma with whatever spiritual practice, mystical practice in the tradition that he was practicing, that's a pretty good swap. That would clean up a lot of unnecessary suffering. So it's not my intention, but when I talked to the bass player about this stuff, I feel like I was able to share a perspective that might be more useful to him, or even healed something, than just feeling like, put off by it.
Well, what kind of things, when you started talking about this, how did you explain what it, okay, well, maybe we should ask this. What does it mean to have a psychedelic gospel band?
Well, there's normative consciousness, and then there's non-ordinary consciousness. And, unless we're splitting hairs, we generally agree that one is waking and doing things, and the other is sleeping, daydreaming. But mostly people think of it as alternate consciousness with either a drug or a and sorry. And so I like to think about altering consciousness in lots of different ways. And so, psychedelics, for sure, obviously you're one of those. Religion is one of those. Although for me, the heart of the religious experience is the religious experience, which in and of itself is a mystical experience induced by a religious ritual or service. And, depending on what that service is, you might have different kinds of experiences. You might get very meditative. You might get very kind of aroused in your excitement or your love of God, or you might just be bored. And they're all kind of options. So for me, gospel music is a lot about the harmonic language and the rhythmic language, and how it feels to play it.
Did you tell him that?
What?
Did you tell the bass player that?
Yeah, I explained all this stuff. We talked for quite a while, and also from being part of the gospel church, being part of Black culture at the church, I've really grown to love just the way people are, like their attitudes, their way of thinking, talking, and lots of things. And so for me, there's an energy in gospel. It's it's kind of in the funk jazz genre. It's the rock and roll in its own version kind of thing. So there's different layers of gospel, but consciousness is a big one. I guess the other one, it's the music, it's the culture, and then it's Jesus. And for me, again, it's Christ consciousness. It's a consciousness that Christ cultivated or was said to cultivate in his life. And the things that he did is an indication of the consciousness, but in and of itself is not my goal to do miracles or to heal the sick. But, I mean, kind of, but to me, it's the work of personal spiritual evolution. Then, maybe if you do it right, you have something good to offer. So I guess those three things. The band is the music. Um, Consciousness, it's the psychedelics, the Christ consciousness. And the gospel is, I don't know. That's the way the music. That's the way I relate to the music. It just gets me going like no other music really does.
Right. Although we should be specific, we've talked a lot about this. That when you say get going, it's actually kind of a bigger deal than just I like it. I mean, it helps the music itself helps you sort of get into this transformative state, an ecstatic state kind of, or a flow state. Right.
Yeah, exactly. There's again, you could divide it. There's different experiences you have. There's a flow state. There's a trance state, especially as a musician. But a lot of people dance and move around when we're playing, so they're kind of in the flow state.
Oh, really?
Too.
They'll dance
Yeah,
and stuff, get
people
up
don't-
and dance and stuff at church when you play.
Yeah, people don't sit down and listen. They're there's one singer who regularly has real deep kind of mystical type experiences. She'll start crying or speaking in tongues.
I've never seen that before.
Oh, really? Yeah, it didn't happen. It didn't happen to her the time you were there, but it has. It's more of her tradition.
Yeah.
I think at House of Hope, it's less common that people do that. But there's a its own kind of activated state, so people dance, the flow state, and heart opening. The heart opening is a big piece of it. It might be the biggest piece at the end of the day. That's what Jesus was all about. That's kind of. I really believe that that's what makes masterful gospel players the way they are. That's one of the pieces. And if you grow up in the church, it's kind of all around you. If you go ahead and cultivate it after the fact, it can look a little different, or maybe be more prioritized, or like give it more focus than somebody who just grew up doing it. So there's an interesting kind of open-hearted worldliness and kind of mystical state amongst the people. It's the kind of state that they're seeking to cultivate, but there's not a lot of language around the mystical part of it.
Yeah. That's a big thing is,
Yeah.
not to make it all about belief, but I think of it as being sort of like that's very egotistical kind of, but like pre and post mystical is terms that I use.
Yeah.
Because you have a mystical transformation, a spiritual transformation, and you start, you experience some kind of a non-dual kind of an awareness. And the way you describe it might be totally different than other people. And you come back down and become dualistic again most of the time. But you're always different. And so one problem with most Christianity is that it's pre-mystical. It's also anti-drugs, but actually being pre-mystical is probably more important than the drug use.
Oh, yeah. You're saying that, right, modern Christian practice, right, hasn't gone, right, it's pre-mystical. The way they're doing it doesn't really stress that.
And they haven't had the experiences.
Yeah.
At least not from a cognitive. I mean, they've had spiritual. Well, I mean, House of Hope is different. They actually have real spirituality there, but a lot of Christians hardly have any real spirituality at all.
So what I find, I didn't feel it at the other churches I worked in with people who looked more like me. But in House of Hope, I'm finding that the spirituality is very much there, but it got transmitted from person to person in a very direct way. It wasn't spoken about or directly cultivated. It was transmitted through the culture and the arts and kind of the way of being with each other, things that Christianity excels in, but there's this added element, right? A lot of people are very tapped in. They're creative, they're talented, they're devoted. There's a lot of like constructive intensity in a way you don't find in a lot of churches with people who look more like me. There's more. The emphasis in other churches is following the procedure and trusting that you're doing a good job. Not, there's a lot you could say about, but in my experience, that's a theme. So yeah, there is. It's interesting. There's a real heart-based, awakened mysticism, but it's not. It's integrated in a different way. People receive it in a different way. There's not a lot of language around it.
Yeah, and actually, it's often not as intellectual, and maybe that's a good thing, because when I feel like such a dick to say pre-mystical, but that to me is just how it is. Like, you have this transformation, and it changes your life, and if you haven't had that transformation, you're going to do things like think that psychedelic churches should all, be disbanded and they all go to jail, because you literally just don't understand, right? Or also, it's not just about drugs. It's like, mystics are called heretics, because the people who have the pre-mystics, usually they are the majority and they are the power center, generally.
Yes, they've devoted themselves to the material world and are more successful sometimes at it.
Well, sometimes.
And power.
Yeah. And they're more committed to telling everybody what to do.
So it's an interesting situation for me because I'm receiving a lot from being there, and I feel very at home, but it's really not my culture, and so I feel like I want to go deeper. I don't always know how. And at the same time, I am interested in devoting my life to things that are implicitly and explicitly forbidden.
Yeah.
There is no recreational or conscious drug use concept in early Christianity at all, unless it's really liberal, and it's certainly not at this church. And so that's interesting because I don't know. That's all I know. I think people have their individual relationships, but there's a lot of addiction, and there's a real recovery kind of save from my in my time of need kind of vibe. It's what drives a lot of the real spirituality and devotion in the culture. So it's cool. There's an intensity in it, but it's definitely staying on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
When right in the beginning you were talking. I mean, when I got this gig, when we had a conversation about kind of each tradition excels at things, theology, consciousness, philosophy, community, devotion. Right, depends on which. You get a little bit of, some more than others in different ones. So, yeah, it's cool. Judaism is non-devotional. Hinduism is, and I was involved for a while, but there's a way that devotional monotheism is at least speaking to the part of me that grew up monotheistic, and I made it my mission to explore beyond that, but I don't know, kind of came from the circle, got a new perspective For a while, I was referring to, gospel Christianity as devotional Judaism. It's all about Jesus, and he was a devotional Jew. I think that's what was so different and heretical about what he was doing, because it was a priestly structure at the time. So to have direct devotional connection to the divine, like the leadership wasn't so down. But that's really what it is, it's you and God, and that's a heart-based thing. So it's cool. It's cool. But
Of course,
I
one
haven't
thing
read
you
it.
see is that heavy spiritual people actually do tend to be weird. I mean, that's another thing I'm getting from that book. It's like people start a religion based on spirituality, but spirituality does lead to odd behavior.
It's easy to marginalize people.
People are easy to marginalize when they're talking about really weird stuff, or I don't know, putting chickens on their head and taking off their clothes, and I mean, like speaking in tongues, right? Like speaking in a bunch of gobbledygook and calling it the language of God. Now, I get that that's a legitimate experience. I don't have a problem with it at all, but I also get that I like weird stuff, and some people, don't like weird stuff, and mystics do weird stuff.
Man, that is a real...
Is a what?
I said that's a real, nexus in a lot of the things we talk about. What you're calling weird, why you don't like it, what it actually is. It's less about the content, and it's more about the willingness to take on yourself the consideration of some of these very kind of potent and complex topics, or realms of life, spirit, God, the meaning of life, even how to live one. And it's sometimes easier to find something that works for you and just be like, I'm going to do it that way. And this is what they say, and it works for me. To do it yourself means you're open to more weird things, because you're inherently on a mission, on a journey of being challenged, of having your beliefs and your considerations challenged all the time. The more you expose yourself to things, the more you'll be challenged. And unless that's really what you want to do, it doesn't really make sense for a lot of people to do it that way, because it's just hard and kind of confusing. And I think that's the difference. Things can legitimately not work for people. So not in all cases is that what's going on. I think people make their choices from a place of wisdom too. Maybe you did all that weird stuff and you're like, okay, here's what I believe. I would say you and I are like in that direction, right? We did experimentation in a way that maybe doesn't work as well. But that weird stuff is always in contrast to some kind of doctrine or experience, depending on where you are on your path. And I think it's kind of people that are into one or the other, interesting to look at. But yeah, being on a path of trying to figure it out for yourself, that's not for everyone.
Yes. And of course, we have lifestyles where we can spend a lot of time basically delving into ourselves. And we, both of us, are the kinds of people that almost don't have a choice. But again, that's not everybody.
Yeah. And, it is what it is. Sometimes it's a privilege to get to do that. Sometimes it's a real burden to get to do that. It's all sorts of things. So just kind of the path you find yourself on. I've never been in a situation where I really felt like I was forced into taking on a certain tradition. Sometimes it's really helpful. Even the smartest, most well-meaning people can kind of get into an eddy, not advance without, you know, like wise or traditional guidance. I think it's, find yourself in a weird sector of of things. If you don't have someone more experienced, so it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I think it's fine that, some people are more into, well, just call it philosophy or spirituality than others. What gets frustrating, though, and I this is kind of a thing for me, is it would be a lot easier if, again, this kind of sounds egotistical, but if you could just be more respected. Not that, like, I'm a genius or know everything, but I've spent a lot more time contemplating the nature of the universe than a lot of people. But,
yeah.
But a lot of folks, when it comes to religion, when it comes to metaphysics, when it comes to philosophy in general, they assume that their own position is right, even if they know that they haven't thought about it very much. And
Sure.
that gets a little bit frustrating when it's not that I want to be able to, like, sit everybody down and, like, lecture them and be like, this is how it is, but the idea that it's just all, like, that philosophy is all just subjective and that some people don't have a little bit more mastery than others, I think that that's unhelpful. It's even true of politics, some people think about those issues or are better informed. I'm in the middle. I'm not even saying that I'm really well informed politically, but I'm kind of in the middle. And you definitely meet people who don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they get one vote too.
You're saying that it's helpful to keep in mind that there really is a hierarchy of experience.
And commitment to developing your own world.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I see. The postmodern view is everybody is equal in their perspective.
Well, it's there's that, but there's also just the assumption people just assume that their own position is right. And it's not postmodern. I'm actually talking about a lot of conservatives who definitely are not postmodern, but they just are like, this is what I was taught, or these are this is the belief system that I developed a long, long time ago, maybe when I was a kid, and it is right. And if you think that that's not right, then you're wrong, even if your resume suggests that you might be in a better position than me to actually contemplate these things.
I see. And there's something about somebody who not only thinks they're right with a lack of experience, but also is unable to recognize that there's enough flexibility somebody else could actually know more than they do.
Yeah. They don't even necessarily think that it's even so, I don't know. They may really respect their own authorities, or they might not respect authority at all, and it actually holds them back because it gets difficult to learn anything.
Yeah, it does seem like a flexibility in recognition that awakening looks really different, or can look a lot of different ways, seems part of at least my worldview of what it looks like if you've kind of done your homework and considered your worldview. You recognize that it's inherently diverse, and there's different kinds that have different values. So might be a lot of awesome ones and a lot of not different not awesome ones. Fundamentalism usually is argued that there's some fear. If you're really unable or unwilling to even consider a different way of thinking, then it's not like that's going to hurt you. So if you're really that...
I think that's the fear, though. People actually think, I cannot question these beliefs because to do so is sinful. Then you really end up stuck.
Yes, you're exactly.
I was never a fundamentalist at all. That probably doesn't surprise you. But there was when I was like at my most Christian phase, like I was really devoted to Jesus. And when I started to explore other things like Buddhism or even the occult, especially the occult, it was a bit of a leap of faith. And I can remember being pretty conscious about it. Like I
Yeah.
being prayed about it, like, hey, I am feeling really drawn to understanding more about even like Satanism at the time. I'm really, and like, but that's scary stuff if you're like Catholic or Christian. That means like Satan's trying to like kill you or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it was really a dialogue between myself and my own sense at the time of the divine, like, hey, you're with me on this, right? And it was a real conscious leap of faith to allow myself to. I can remember like looking at like the website for Satanism and being like, I finally had the courage to look at their website.
Oh, wow.
I'm not dead. I haven't gone to hell. This is in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That's why I think that
Yeah.
that kind of questioning, people think, oh, questioning, that's a sign of lack of faith. I think it's the opposite. Questioning is
Yeah.
actually a sign of faith.
Yeah. Yeah. The faith is defined very particular and interesting ways. I kind of agree more with you that, right, faith is something that you are aligned with to such a degree that exploring isn't problematic. Uh, and yeah, man, that's the fear. It's gonna hurt you, or God's gonna hurt you, or something bad's gonna happen, and I don't know, man. At some point, you're like, your life expresses that. It reflects that. Then it works or it doesn't work. I know a lot of people get to these critical moments, and they're like, okay, I tried, just doing the way they said, but like, I gotta address something. It might be different than I thought, even if that's so scary because it's weird. We are so our thoughts are so salient and experiential to us that to have different kinds of thoughts actually imbue. We have reactions to those, and it's general good mental hygiene. Your thoughts like pleasing to you, but we get into these kind of authority complexes, and we're not really thinking for ourselves that way, but we don't totally realize it, and then sometimes they don't always work in the long term.
Yeah. Well, my man, we've been doing this for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
All right.
I think we should probably, every single time, this will be how we end. By the way, Hayes, our boy Hayes, he likes drugs, God music.
All right, Hayes, man, thanks for hanging. We appreciate it.
Cool. Then let's stop this,
Good.
and we will plan on, unless we change it, we'll plan on doing it again next Friday.
Yeah, wonderful. I can't wait.
All right.
All right.